All right, how's it going, everybody? We'll give it like another minute or two. There's only 4 of you here. Hopefully, some other people join. If not, then it'll probably just be quick stream today. All right, only 5 of you here, but we'll go ahead and get started. And hopefully, some other people will watch this on the recording later. And the reasoning for that is because a lot has happened today. A, a lot of significant events. It's not just that, we had a nice little pump or whatever. It's that the pump actually meant something. It actually broke levels, it's reclaiming structures, it's doing certain things that makes it more notable than just a bounce, right? Or any regular wick or anything like that. Our daily structure, which we previously said was consolidation and then bearish, right? Lower highs and then lower lows. Our daily market structure consolidation, or I'm sorry, bearish market structure is now at the very least broken bullishly. So you can argue with me on this. You can debate with me. And honestly, I really don't have an argument for either direction. Market structure is interpretive. It is up to you how to interpret this price action. So I know one of two potential ways that you could see this, right? And you're going to have to choose one or the other. Really, it doesn't matter because you still need the same thing to happen to see both play out, anyways. But the way to interpret this market structure is either this is your high, low, lower high, lower low, lower high, higher low, higher high. So in this market structure analysis, you are already confirmed bullish on your daily market structure. The other analysis is high, low, lower high, lower low, and you see this is all one higher high, right? So either way you look at it, it's still bullish. It's still definitely a sign of strength. There's no doubt about that. But it's either one way you are confirmed bullish already and this is your invalidation, or the other way you are not confirmed bullish just yet. You're still pending a higher low before the continuation, right? So they're both bullish ideas. They're both signs of strength. They both imply that the trend may be shifting nonetheless, right? It's just one way you're looking at it as confirmed already, and the other way you're still pending. You're being a little more passive. Previously, and the reason I'm so hesitant to make an analysis one way or the other, for this price action, we said during this price action, as it was actually occurring, we said high, low, higher low, higher low, right? So that's how we looked at it. Now, following, it seems very obvious that we should have looked at this as all one lower low and then lower high before downside continuation, right? That's kind of the swings that we were given. So during, it seemed very nice that these were all higher highs and higher lows, and you could still keep that argument or whatever. But that's why market structure is always going to be interpretation. the market never lies to you, price action never lies to you, right? These candles are all, everyone's looking and seeing the exact same information that you are. It's just how do you interpret it? So those are the two ways that I could possibly see it. I don't really see how you could analyze that any other way. But that's what we're going to roll with. And depending on how the next couple days look, then we'll adjust our analysis, or we'll backtrack and say, this one was the proper one to say, and or this one was the proper one. And, we'll build on that. But just for now, at least have the idea that one of those two things are probably right. All right. So with that said, it really doesn't matter the market structure analysis that you make for the daily time frame, because in the end of it all, you still need breakout and hopefully retest before continuation, right? The first analysis that we ever made on May 19th, right, the day of this daily candle, when we cracked down into our new range, which was an old range that we used in January earlier this year, we said, this is our home now. And I went back and I even watched the stream earlier today. I literally said, this is our home. 41K is a sell, 30K is a buy. Continue that process over and over and over again. And anything in between is possible. And I even drew a little loop de loop and I said, yeah, even the loop de loop. Anything in between is possible. 41K, 30K. This is daily supply. This is daily demand. You sell this, you buy this. You sell this, you buy this. That process repeats over and over and over again. So the true sign of strength, the true indication that this is ready to keep pumping even higher is once you break out above this range, right? Or below the range. But from there, that's when probabilities really start to skew in the Bulls' favor heavily. And that's when it becomes very probable that you see another 14% or so 14% or so into your next daily supply, which is 47K. And then once you reclaim 47K, your next daily supply from there is 52K. You reclaim that. Your next daily supply from there is 59K. You reclaim that. And all of a sudden, new all time highs are very, very likely, right? So level by level. And yes, it's definitely hopeful. It's promising. It's exciting that we're seeing this crazy move upwards, and we have these two daily candles, which are a 15% move in the past 2 days or whatever. We're not in the clear just yet. I wish we were. My portfolio is going to look great if we are, or if we do, and trades are going to start getting sent out again if we do. All of that is fine and dandy, but we're not in the clear just yet. We're still well within the first analysis that we ever made the day of this range creation, before this was even a range. So we're not in the clear just yet. Don't get overexcited at resistance, right? So, that said, don't get overexcited, but if there were a time to be excited, now's probably the time. This is your 4-hour chart. You have not traded above the 4-hour 200s, which, by the way, were consistently local bottoms. And you can even go farther back than this, right? Local bottom, local bottom, local bottom, and then tops, and then bottoms, and then tops, and then bottoms. So consistently local bottoms and local tops for the majority of this bull run. And breaking below them was the first real sign of weakness that we are potentially breaking down on a much bigger time frame. This was sort of the light bulb that should have went off that said this time is different than this time or 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 this time, right? You get the idea. So with something that is that significant, the fact that you have not traded above them since May 12th, and here we are a month later, and now you're cracking above them, that is very important, right? That definitely shows the implied strength underlying on this chart. It's showing you that we are somewhat ready to start reclaiming levels to the upside. So if we manage to maintain this, then that is definitely strength. That is not a bearish argument at all whatsoever, right? Once you break out from these 4-hour 200s, maybe get them moving sideways a bit because now price action is trading above them, get some momentum slanted again, and all of a sudden things start to look like over here, right, where you're breaking down below and now you're sort of starting to reclaim, and now all of a sudden these 4-hour 200s have a bunch of momentum and off to the races you go, right? That moves in confluence with the analysis that we already said, which is once you reclaim this 41K supply zone on your daily time frame with the daily 200s also in this region, you're probably ready to go, right? You're probably heading up for your next move into 47K ish region, right? So definitely noteworthy. Do not just throw that away and brush it off. It is a significant event. Just the fact that we've managed to trade above the 4-hour 200s slightly, even if they don't hold and they give away again, and we continue this move downwards into potentially 37K, and then we'll take it level by level from there. We break 37K. All right, what's really stopping us from breaking our 4-hour market structure, which, by the way, this needs to be discussed as well. Our 4-hour market structure is also very debatable, very up to interpretation. It's not clear to me by any means. I wish it were, but I'll never lie to you. I don't have a good read. I can't honestly tell you that I'm confident that the market structure is this way or this way. So the way that I'm seeing this is also one of two ways. Your 4-hour chart is high, low, lower high, lower low. Clearly, that's a bearish structure. And then from there, you can see that as lower high and then higher low before the breakout, which gave you this higher high, crazy leg upwards. Or you can see this as sort of all one low and then the higher high. So this analysis, your market structure has broken bullishly. So you're still pending a potential higher low somewhere higher than this region. So 34.6K. The ideal region to do that at would be this sort of like equilibrium, where if you draw, we'll get rid of these. If you draw this fixed range volume profile, you can see that the middle of this range, the smack dab in the middle of this range, is the point of control, right? So the analysis is quite simple, really. When you're at the middle of this range, you probably don't want to be trading. You probably have a pretty decent chance to break out in either direction when you're trading at the middle of the range. Once you start to expand away from the middle, from this equilibrium, that's when you start to gain momentum, right? So trading at these highs away from the smack dab in the middle of the range is going to pull a lot of momentum upwards if that happens. So the ideal region for a pullback would be to retest this sort of like cluster in the middle, right? And once we break below that, that's when you can call it quits. And that's when it starts to look very much like we have our original analysis playing out, which is just range high, range low, range high, range low, range high, range low, over and over and over again. Right about here, somewhere in this region, once you start to lose that, that's when you can really call it quits. And then, what's stopping you from breaking your 4-hour structure bearishly in the form of a lower low? Your next demand zone is this 33.7K ish demand zone, right? And if you lose that, what's really stopping you from playing out the entire range analysis, which is here and then repeat that process, right? So different ways to look at this, and we're going to see how this plays out moving forward. Ideal, in my opinion, would be a pullback to 37K. If that doesn't happen, then we're going to be breaking out, right? There's really no way around that. We either get rejected from this cluster of resistance and then pull back into, hopefully, far down into 37K, and that could serve as like a ground, now because we know that there's tons of volume that was traded here. We know that this is very strong support. It's been acting as sort of like a pivot level in between the overall range. So that would be the ideal region to pull back before the bigger breakout. So either that happens and we get some sort of a pullback, and hopefully that pullback bleeds down into this range so that we can look for some long entries, or we're going to break out. Right? We start breaking out. Maybe this is the bullish retest. Maybe we just catapult and just keep legging upwards. Who knows? It's either one of those two things. We're either going to get rejected from here and look for long entries on a pullback, or we're just going to continue skyrocketing through the resistance if it doesn't hold. Right? Right now it's holding. So we'll see how it plays out. Take things day by day, time frame by time frame, level by level, and we can make sense of this. No FOMO allowed, no FUD allowed. We're here to trade, right? Our hourly analysis, not too much going on here, but a couple things worth noting. So, our hourly 200 MAs are very key for price action. Just looking at it, I mean, just this cluster of price action, they get respected very frequently. And it's not even the greatest example, I would say. Excuse me. It's not even the greatest example, but we know that these hourly 200s frequently get respected as local tops and local bottoms intraday, right? And on top of that, when we have these hourly 200s slanted with a ton of momentum, they frequently provide some sort of either local top or local bottom for the trend, not just when you're stuck in a range as we are right now. So if we manage to slant these hourly 200s towards the upside as they are now, if we manage to continue hanging around this region, these are going to drastically try and catch up, and any pullbacks down into them are likely to see them hold up as support, right? So that is nice, and it's not helpful as of yet, but it definitely goes along with the analysis that we just said, which is if we get rejected from this cluster, this region, then we want to see this general area to hold as support. That would be an ideal entry for a much bigger long on a higher time frame, right? So definitely want to see that. And then the other thing for the hourly time frame is this is really the only chart where we can confidently make a market structure analysis. So this is very clear to me. These are all higher highs and higher lows, and this is no exception to that idea. So really, it is if you break this low here, that's what is likely telling you that we're in for a deeper pullback, and we might get that move down to 37K ish region, right? Somewhere in this cluster would be ideal. If our hourly 200s line up nicely with this region, even better. But that's what would sort of tell you that a much deeper pullback is on its way. So again, not too helpful with current price action, but that's about the only sort of usefulness as far as market structure goes for all the time frames that we're working with currently, right? Because our 4 hour doesn't really help you too much. Our invalidation, depending on how you look at it, is either 34.7 or 34.6, right? Both are not very helpful at all. And then we discussed on our daily that market structure, not too helpful either 34.6 or 31K. Those aren't helpful at all whatsoever either. So if our hourly structure breaks, that's what should kind of turn on that light bulb that says, okay, I can now reasonably start looking for a bigger pullback into this 37K region. And if it maintains, if the higher highs and higher lows just continue onwards, then we'll get the bigger breakout. We'll get the bigger breakout. Our 4 hour 200s held as, this very slight retest of support. We're breaking above our 200 daily EMA. We're breaking above the 41K daily supply zone, all these things. So if our hourly market structure continues, it is the trend has remained the trend. If it breaks, we're likely to see that deeper pullback, hopefully into this 37K region where we can look to start building along for a much bigger move upwards on a higher time frame. If that 37K ish region doesn't hold up, then it's likely that the overall analysis that 41K is a sell, and then you look to buy back at the range lows at 30K, it's likely that that analysis is then playing out. So take things level by level. You can domino effect your way into success. Domino effect, as in one thing happens, it increases the probability for the next thing to happen, right? You continue just compounding that idea until you have a very solid feel for where price action is going. And once you match risk reward with that, you have amazing setups and you start making money consistently, right? So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully everyone got some value from that, on my insights at least. And yeah, and we'll move on. Any questions before we move on? I kind of like have to sneeze, but it's not coming out. So it's weird. It's messing with me right now. All right. Sorry guys. I know I'm random. Let's move on to ETH USD. I know you guys love looking at this chart. So ETH USD is actually still stuck in this consolidation. Really, when I'm saying this, I'm just kind of looking at this cluster price action. I'm not focused on anything else really. I'm kind of just paying attention to the lower highs and higher lows that we've been given. And simply, I would just continue anticipating the trend, right? The trend, it's not necessarily that we have no trend, it's that our trend is just sideways. Our trend is valid consolidation. Our market structure hasn't lied to us, and it's actually very clean and very clear to see. Lower high, higher low, lower high, higher low. So what am I expecting here for ETH? A lower high somewhere lower than 2,900, right? And then from that lower high, I'll look for another higher low. And then from that higher low, look for another lower high until we get the breakout of the consolidation. And just like we said for BTC, we're going to backtrack to BTC really quick. Just like we said for BTC, we had consolidation. Once we broke that, we saw a much deeper sell off continue, and we nearly came down into this 30K demand again. And of course, our original analysis held strong from there on. Right? So, very, very similar thing for ETH. You could even argue that it's like kind of lagged. Like this market structure is what BTC's market structure was a week ago. So, same exact analysis applies here today. 4-hour chart for ETH. I would say the 4-hour is probably the most notable and the one that you want to pay attention to the hardest. The 4-hour chart, and it's mainly because the 4-hour 200 EMA or MAs. That's my reasoning. It's really, honestly, a very stupidly simple analysis. It is the 4-hour 200s have consistently been local bottoms and local tops, but mainly local bottoms for the past year now, right? Since March of 2020. We reclaimed them. They start getting respected as local bottoms frequently. We lose them for a bit. They start getting used as local tops. Someone's mic is not muted. Pass one, man. Gonna have to server mute you. Sorry. No hard feelings. But once we reclaim these 4-hour 200s, they consistently act as local bottoms. And as long as we're below them, they have the opportunity to act as local tops. This is no surprise to anybody. Hopefully, this is the same exact analysis that we made since losing the 4-hour 200s on May 18th, right? So since then, they've given us local tops. I won't even count this one, just for argument's sake. 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So there's a good chance that they're going to give us the lower high that we know that the market structure on our daily is implying to look for. And instead, if they get reclaimed as support, that probably should tell you that this is stronger and that this time, right? This time is different than this time or this time or this time or this time. And once that happens, it falls back into the stupidly simple analysis. Once we're above the 4-hour 200s for ETH/USD, they're likely to act as local bottoms. And that's it. And now the trend is shifting. We have momentum. And then you cascade that analysis into our daily, which says now you're breaking into a bullish market structure because you're breaking into higher highs after just creating a higher low. So you're breaking out of consolidation upwards. Your lower time frames are bullish. You're reclaiming the exact same dynamic region that you've been using the past year as local bottoms and local tops. So you have that on your side. And now probabilities and potential upside have skyrocketed from this point forward, right? Even if you're still below this 4-hour supply zone, the the weight of the analysis towards the bull side at that point is probably so strong. I would imagine it would only be a matter of time before this supply zone breaks, right? Especially after every time that a zone gets tested, it gets weaker. So 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4, you could argue. 5 or 4 times that this zone's been tested on the way up after reclaiming all of these regions, after breaking out of your consolidation bullishly. All of those arguments, I can't imagine that it would really hold up too strong at that point, anyways. So that's when ETH/USD really starts to become very bullish on a higher time frame. Until then, it's still, I'm expecting lower highs on the daily. I'm expecting 4-hour 200s to be resistance. And if our 4-hour market structure is still bullish, which it is currently, high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, right? If that's still bullish, then there's the chance that we do eventually get that breakout of the overall consolidation structure, right? As well as our 4-hour 200s. If we lose the 4-hour structure, if all of a sudden we make high and then let's say higher low, lower high, lower low, or maybe even just lower low and then lower high, that should kind of tell you that the daily high, the lower high that you're looking for on your daily time frame is already locked in. And now we can start looking for, is this going to find a higher low, or does it break down from the consolidation overall on the downside now? Right. So as long as our lower time frames are still bullish, of course, there's the um, slightly skewed probability that we do get that breakout of these 4-hour 200s, of our consolidation structure, of all those things. There's that slight bit of hope. But if that is lost, then we can say that's probably our lower high on the daily that we know that we were supposed to look for. And we can start looking for the consolidation to fill out towards the downside now, or maybe even break down entirely, right? So again, cascading ideas, cascading. Uh, um, I've been using that word way too much just in the stream. Probably said it 8 times, but you get the idea. You get the point. Domino effect, time frames to understand probabilities better for the next time frame. And then when we zoom into our hourly, only really agrees with everything that we just said, more so towards the invalidation side, where you're looking for a higher low on your 4-hour chart, right? Somewhere higher than this low. So the ideal place to do that at would be these hourly 200s, as well as bullish retesting this sort of bigger daily demand zone now, since you're above it. So finding a higher low anywhere in this region would actually be an ideal long setup, right? And from there, you're kind of just looking for the rest of the consolidation to fill out. So potentially up into these 4-hour 200s. They're probably somewhere over here, and maybe even the much bigger breakout of the consolidation structure as a whole. right? And we're going to assume that if this region is lost, if this region's lost, if our hourly 200s don't hold up, if our 4-hour structure breaks bearishly, then this was probably the top. We're probably wrong on our long idea, and we might continue the downtrend towards filling out the rest of the consolidation, or maybe even breaking down entirely. Who knows, right? So as long as your hourly trend is still bullish, as long as you're above these hourly 200s, those are also acting as like this guardian for this 4-hour market structure. And we know that if our 4-hour market structure breaks, that probably means that the daily local top is in within that overall consolidation. And all of a sudden, things start to make sense, and you can domino effect your way into success for ETHUSD as well. Right. So this would be an ideal setup. I would actually take this. If Martian is watching this, you maybe we can discuss sending this out as a signal. I think this would be a solid idea, and we'll take it from there. We'll see. But for right now, this is a trade that I would be willing to take. And if it works out, great. We look like geniuses. At the very least, hopefully, we see the 4-hour structure continue on into this 4-hour 200 EMA. We'll look to take some profit off there. All right. And if we're wrong, we're going to assume that this was the high on our daily before consolidation or downtrend. We'll keep this there. We'll come back to it. I'm going to set notifications for this trade after the stream. I won't do it right now, but we're definitely going to keep an eye on this. All right. So ETH BTC is where we'll move on to next. A couple things for this chart. Our daily did just break our market structure bearishly. So made a lower low. So now if we get a lower high, anywhere lower than this high at 0.077, we're going to have a confirmed downtrend on the daily time frame for ETH BTC. So just keep that in mind. Our daily market structure broke. And when we zoom into our 4-hour, you can kind of get an idea why. We just saw this meltdown below this region, below the 4-hour 200s. And really, there was nothing stopping our market structure from breaking in between, this 4-hour 200 EMA and current price, or I'm sorry, and this demand zone and where our invalidation is. So we saw price continue its meltdown, break our structure, and then finally find some support at this 4-hour demand zone here at 0.063. So now that we found demand or some sort of support, at least a little relief bounce, we managed to get the bounce, and the same. This is honestly, this is disrespectful. This hurts. It's painful. The 4-hour 200 EMA didn't hold up at all as support on the way down, but it's going to act as a local top on the way up. That is very painful, but that's what happens. Bearish retest the 4-hour 200 EMA, get rejected again. This is still technically a bearish market structure now on your 4-hour chart. Lower low, lower high, and actually this is a lower low. So ETH BTC not looking too hot, but we are testing the demand zone again. We did see a nice reaction from it so far. So hopefully manage to bounce and maybe test this 4-hour 200 EMA again. From there, we'll take it level by level. If we reclaim that, probably see another 4% move or so into the next resistance. We reclaim that. And next resistance, 4-hour supply at 0.073. And then once you reclaim that, then it looks very likely that this weekly supply zone gets tested. That's the same exact analysis that we made here, and clearly we were very wrong. But we broke it down time frame by time frame. We said, we have support here. Those are our hourly 200s. Mixed with this 4-hour demand zone at the time, and we lose that, it seems very likely that we head down to this region. We lose that 4-hour 200 EMA. We lose that 4-hour demand, continue structure, continue trend, and continue downwards. So the ETH BTC chart needs a lot of work. It's not bullish by any means. We always say, or I always say, really, strength is not how big of a bounce you get. Strength is not the length of a wick. Strength is, are you reclaiming levels? Are you flipping your structure bullishly? Higher highs and higher lows? And if not, then you're not strong. You're just relief bouncing, dead catting. People are taking profit, right? This is, oh, look at that. We're so strong. Look how big this bounce is. 20% bounce. That's crazy. And we have a 15% wick on the 4-hour candle that just closed. Long ETH BTC or have fun staying poor. And then we just fully retrace all of it, right? And all of a sudden, everyone's liquidated and they delete their tweets because of that. So this needs a lot of work. This is not strong by any means, but we're at support. So if we bounce from support, then that's kind of just logical, right? It's logical that people would take profit at this region. It's logical that buyers would step in. So this sort of a bounce is all right, but it's definitely not strength per se. So we might see something similar. Hopefully we do. That'd be great. Reclaim these hourly 200s is kind of in agreement with reclaiming the 4-hour 200s where they are now. And we can continue the analysis from there. And then last but not least, we'll talk about dominance. Now, I won't lie to you, the dominance chart scares me. It really does. Dominance, we have gone over this, and this is probably, if you're going to take anything away from these live streams, I would think that the dominance analysis is probably the most notable. We've been going over this with a very easy to understand approach, and it's working. So I really do not see a reason to deviate away from that approach. And the approach is our 4-hour 200s consistently act as local tops and local bottoms. I know I sound like a broken record, right? But listen, this is my system. I'm sorry. They consistently act as local tops and local bottoms historically, not even just as of recent, but historically. So you can go back into July of 2020, whatever you want to do, and you can see the pattern with these moving averages. It's consistent, it's very easy to spot. So when we're below them, the analysis is you might be preemptive getting overly bearish on altcoins because the 4-hour 200s still have a chance to act as a local top and push us downwards and continue the trend downwards overall. So maybe you're jumping the gun a little bit. And when you're above them, it is, hey, the dominance, these 4-hour 200s might act as support, potentially even some sort of local bottom. And that's it. That's the analysis, right? So if we're above the 4-hour 200s, if we are testing them as support and bouncing, what's really stopping us from seeing a much bigger reversal on something like our daily time frame for dominance? Who knows? Maybe up only into 49.60 and then we downtrend from there, maybe into 52, maybe into the 200 daily moving averages, maybe into 57, where we have in between those moving averages, maybe all the way up to 60. Who knows, right? What's stopping us from continuing that trend upwards? Well, it's sure as hell not the 4-hour 200s because we're already above them. That's the analysis. It's very, very simple, but it's working. So now that we're above these 4-hour 200s, I personally am approaching altcoins with extreme caution. I will be very glad to jump back in on the trend if we lose them again, if we start trading back below them again, right? But the fact that we are above them, the fact that they have gone from we don't even really need price action, the fact that they have gone from something like this sort of trend into sideways means from this sideways, they're either going to start building momentum towards the upside, or this sideways is fuel for another move down and they start curling towards the downside again. And you see that happen very often as well. right? So you could argue the exact same thing here. 4-hour 200s, obviously a ton of momentum. Dominance is ripping. Bitcoin's just showing the wrath, right? And we go sideways for a bit. So from this sideways, this is either going to be like this reversal point, and we start building some momentum towards the downside now, or this is sideways before continuation towards the upside, right? So now your probabilities have skewed drastically. And the reasoning for that is your momentum has died down significantly. You went from things are bearish, things are bearish, things are bearish, things are bearish, probability towards the downside. That's what price is implying. That's what momentum is implying. To now, it's either up or down, right? So you went from probabilities heavily in your favor to now it's essentially 50-50. So a significant shift in probabilities, a significant shift in momentum, and could see something crazy like a much bigger reversal towards the upside, right? Exact same thing here. Literally exact same. Except this slope is even more drastic than anything, probably anything we've ever seen before, unless you were here back in 2015, 2017, I don't know. But this slope, obviously, I mean, and you guys are proof to this. If you were here in Signal Profits for any of this price action, you know that we consistently said, hey, people calling for doomsday on altcoins throughout all of this price action, they're dumb. Literally, those are my exact words. They are dumb. Probabilities heavily favor downside for dominance. There's not really much to go against that. And the probability that we see some crazy up move like this when our trend, when our momentum is very strongly downwards, it's a very slim chance. It's a very low probability, right? So go ahead and call for doomsday, but 99 out of 100 times you're going to be wrong. Whereas now the environment's changed. Now it is, hey, instead of doomsday callers are dumb, it is now, hey, doomsday callers kind of have a little bit of an argument, right? So it's shifted drastically. Do not just brush this off. It is a significant event. It could be the start of something much bigger, or it could be nothing and we just continue downwards. But don't let it be the start of something much bigger and just kind of pray for the something um, for the continuation downwards. That's my opinion, and that is what we've been saying, and that's what I'm going to keep rolling with. And then hourly, really, there's no reason to keep looking at this anymore. Our trend was the hourly 200 MAs. They consistently gave us local tops within this massive, very strong downtrend that we've never really seen before. And we said, really, the first sign of strength is once you reclaim these hourly 200s. That should be the light bulb that goes off in your head that says, oh shit, this time might be different than the previous times. And once we're back below them again, right, this time the 4-hour 200s held up as strong resistance. They push us back below our hourly 200s. We take a breath of relief and rejoice, right? If we're overexposed to altcoins, that's when we take that sigh of relief and pray that the trend continues being the trend, right? And we got that for a couple days and then breakout. So now we're back where we started back here, right? So now it becomes, do the 4-hour 200s hold up as resistance once again, like they did here, or do those give way as well, hint, hint, and potentially open the gate for a much bigger reversal on a higher time frame? And so that's the analysis that we have been making for the past, I don't even know how many months. So now that we're saying, or now that we're seeing it actually play out in front of our eyes, we should probably give it some weight, right? Actually perform it. So keep that in mind. Dominance is huge right now. Very key, pivotal level for what may be the next few days, weeks, months, who knows, right? I never ever in my entire life could have predicted this sort of a downtrend for dominance in 3 months. Never. All right. I've rambled enough. What do you guys want to see? Delete their tweets, lol. Yeah, before we jump into it, DDP did have a question on how do I personally look for demand and supply zones. So for me, it's pretty simple, and you're going to hate how simple it really is because it seems like I'm lying to you. But it honestly, truly is. I'm just looking for a general region where price action tends to respect as resistance frequently or support. And this time, this is not a good example. It wasn't support, um, or both. So this 41K supply zone consistently been resistance. So we see tap and then pretty big rejection, tap again, very big rejection, tap again, solid rejection, back test, great rejection, back test, great rejection. Didn't quite come up this time, but here we are testing again. And so now we can assume that there are sellers in this region, and I'm drawing it out in the form of just like a gray box rather than a line, because I really don't care too much to be pinpoint. I'm not trying to look like a genius. I don't want to call the exact top or the exact bottom. I just want to portray to myself where are sellers likely to step in within this general region, or where are buyers likely to step in within a general region. So maybe if we zoom in, we might be able to find something a bit better. This 37K supply zone, or really now it's demand, is a good example of how I look for demand and supply. Support, 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 resistance, 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 support, resistance. You could argue resistance, resistance, resistance. So now if we come back down into it, I'm going to assume that people are willing to buy, because I've frequently seen that people are willing to buy or sell on both sides. And that's really it. There's not too much else to it. It's really honestly just drawing gray boxes where it makes sense for you. So for me, again, this one's not as clean, but resistance, resistance, support, 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 cluster. This is where it starts to get ugly. Resistance, support, 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 right? So pretty clean overall. And then all the way even over here, support. And then we saw it act as support a bunch of times here as well. So that's how I do it. I will always say, though, do not get carried away with the vanity that is TA, because especially with beginners, which if you're asking this question, I'm assuming you're a beginner to like technical analysis. Very often what I see with beginners is they get carried away with, oh my God, look, okay, so we have 38.7K, we have a demand zone right here, right? Oh, but there's supply right here, and then there's demand right here too. And then yeah, right here, there's demand. So it's like, how do you train this? It's like, what are you looking at? I, I don't know. So there's likely a good chance that you don't know. And then I don't even use trend lines. So if you mix trend lines with all those gray boxes that we just had, now your chart looks like this, right? With a bunch of trend lines everywhere. And it's just like, now you're getting carried away with, you're trying to paint a pretty chart at that point. You're not trying to look for valid regions or zones where you can actually trade to make money. So don't fall into the pit of technical analysis that is just drawing pretty charts and the vanity behind trading, because charting is an art form. What I see is not going to be what you see. And you might argue with me, you might interpret something differently, you might use different moving averages than me, you might use Ichimoku, you might use Gon, you might use Elliott wave, whatever. So it's an art theory. It's that beauty in the eye of the beholder sort of thing. but don't fall into that pit. At the end of the day, if this box stops getting respected, if it stops making me money, if it stops helping me in my analysis, I get rid of it. It really is that simple. If it doesn't help you make money, get rid of it. Bitcoin kind of breaking down here, but not really. Only 1%. Looks like a bigger breakdown. But yeah, that's my whole rant that I know you didn't ask for. So, and I will also say, I don't. I typically don't only rely on just my random gray boxes because that's what they are, right? They're just random gray boxes. Whereas this tool, you saw me use it earlier. The go to the 1 hour. So this tool, fixed range volume profile, it's essentially just VPVR, and except I'm getting to decide where I want to see the volume for this specific range. This is actual data, right? So this in this scenario, this agrees with my analysis. My analysis is we have this like box here, and it's likely to act as supply or resistance on either side. And when we pull out the actual statistical data, the information that the market is literally giving us, it gives it to me, it gives it to you too. So we're all seeing the same thing. When you pull out something like that, that's more notable than me just drawing a gray box or a trend line or whatever, right? Or drawing a little squiggle and saying price action comes to my squiggle and then it gets rejected or whatever, you know? So I also do not just use my gray boxes. I rely on them heavily because I've been trading for 6 years and I have a pretty solid understanding for where's supply and where's demand. And I've managed to sort of tweak my system and I have a pretty good idea of probabilities and what zones are going to get respected and what aren't. But I'm not always just looking for just a gray box. I want to see gray box plus 200 moving averages. Seems like a good idea to me, right? That's confluence now. So we have multiple ideas moving in confluence with the same agreement in the same area. So once you have stuff that lines up nicely like that, you'll have more consistency and you'll just be better off in the long run. So I never, I, listen, I heavily rely on TA. And if you ask me anything related to news or fundamentals or investment research or white papers or whatever it is, if it's anything other than technical analysis, if it's anything other than just looking at charts and saying up or down, I'm completely useless. But I will be the first one to tell you that technical analysis is speculative. It is. Anything that you draw on your chart is even more speculative. So your job is to not be the speculator, be consistent, line things up, take things where probability lines up with your analysis and where risk reward and position size or portfolio sizing or exposure, all those things line up nicely. Then you have consistent setups. Then you have a career or a hobby or a side income, things like that. I know I'm ranting. Sorry. Um, all right. Another question: do you use Renko charts to have a clearer read on market structure? Why or why not? I asked that because the 1 hour market structure in BTUSD is not clear to me. I don't use Renko, and I'm not going to lie to you. I've never used Renko, and mainly the only reason that I don't use Renko is because I don't even think you can use it for a free TradingView subscription, and I don't pay for TradingView because I see that as a scam, and my analysis is unbelievably stupid simple anyways. So I'm not going to pay $15 or $20. I don't even know what it is a month to subscribe for TradingView just to not even really use anything. Right? I only use EMAs and volume and gray boxes and Fibonacci. So um, I never really pay for TradingView. I don't see a reason to pay for TradingView. I'm very cheap, right? I can't even justify like going and buying a sandwich from Panera or whatever. But that's the only reason. Um, the hourly market structure, I would say, is probably the clearest. And I think what's probably screwing you up is this little wick here, which, I mean, fair point. But even then, you have consolidation. So higher lows mixed with lower highs. And then you got breakout of that consolidation, right? So now you have higher low, higher high. So now you're bullish. Now you're bullish on your hourly again. So I would say the hourly structure for Bitcoin is the clearest for me, um, at the moment at least. But I never use Renko. That is a good idea though. Another thing is you could use maybe like a line chart. So that might help, right? So the line chart kind of clears it up a bit. You had like consolidation here, your breakdown. So now you are bearish trending. Then you had high, low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, right? And that's the analysis that we sort of made. But when you turn the candlesticks back on, whoops, that's the analysis that we made. But when you look at this wick, you have consolidation and then higher high from there after making a higher low. So bullish market structure, anyways. That is a good idea, though. If you have access to Renko, I don't see why not to use it. I mean, really, I can't see an argument as to why not to use it to look at market structure. Probably similar to what a line chart looks like, if I had to guess. How much weight do you give to a large buy or sell wall created by a single trade when it comes to trend analysis? Um, so my thing is, man, I'm sorry, but I will never lie to you. I absolutely suck at order flow or order books or looking at walls or whatever it may be. I don't give any weight to it because when I do, I fuck myself over. I will have an original analysis that says number go up, and then I'll see like a thousand BTC sell wall or whatever, and I'll say, well, because that sell wall's there, we might not go up, and then we end up going up anyways, and I feel like an idiot, and that helps or that hurts me more times than not. So what I've done is I've just cut it out of my analysis entirely. So in long term, I perform better statistically, like factual. Like I can show you the actual data when I'm not paying attention to order flow or order books or walls or anything like that. So for me, it's not useful. Jacob and Defsuo pay attention to that stuff a lot. So they are the ones to keep an eye on for that stuff. Defsuo is our order flow analyst, so he literally specializes in that stuff. He's the person to ask, and he's constantly looking at right. So I mean, his last post was big bid support on Binance seems to be helping hold price above 38,700, right? And then we ripped upwards from there. So Defsuo is the one who pays attention to that stuff. Me, dude, anything other than moving averages and gray boxes, I'm pretty useless. Could you see 3-day candle on BTC? Do you also spot the H&S pattern? Also can be spotted on weekly. What do you think? Um, I know. So again, I can't turn on 3-day because I'm not subscribed to TradingView because I'm a pleb. But I know that the Head and Shoulders that you're discussing, I really, dude, it's such a meme to me. Like, I don't know. It's really, I don't take it seriously at all. I think most patterns are memes, to be fair, though. So I'm very, very biased when I say this, right? To me, patterns are kind of a meme. And every pattern has a sort of logic behind it that can be justified through like market structure, right? So, like, An ascending triangle is just higher lows and equal highs, which implies supply is getting bashed, buyers are stepping in higher, the trend is up, so breakout likely, right? So a head and shoulders, I'm not even sure how you would like imply that or interpret that in like a sentence form. I don't know, maybe demand forms, you get a run up, some sort of like distribution, I have no idea, and then demand gets tested again. So now it's weaker the second time down, so it breaks. I'm not really sure, but I've never used head and shoulders patterns because I never found them to be reliable. And that goes with most patterns for me. So I hate patterns. You're asking, I mean, dude, literally, I mean, these questions, I feel sorry for you guys. I'm quite literally the worst person to ask these questions to, and I apologize. I'm very, very biased, and I'll let you know straight up. I do not like patterns at all. Yeah, like you hear me meme the trend line traders and whatnot. When everyone when we get this consolidation and everyone pulls out their nice pretty little triangle, right? Or really this is how it would have been drawn. Something like that. This is where I come in and say, yep, trendline traders, they're going to look for this little breakout retest of the trend line, which by the way, there's a video of this too, of me saying this prior to this happening. They're going to look for the breakout retest of the trend line. They're going to think, oh my God, we're heading to 40K. We're going to break out. Everything's bullish. Go long, buy the retest, whatever. And really, when you look at your structure, it is still lower highs and higher lows. So you're still in consolidation, even though they thought this was a breakout. So they buy the top and then they get fucked. Right? So I stay away from patterns. So how much weight do I give the head and shoulders on the weekly or the 3-day or whatever? No weight, zero weight. But I'm also extremely biased. I see the idea behind it for sure. By all means, you could go ask a pattern trader their thoughts on this, and they would maybe say, yeah, head and shoulders and breakdown coming. I definitely see what you're seeing. I just don't know how much weight I would give it. For me, the answer is zero. For you, I don't know. I really don't. I think it makes more sense to pay attention to the trend, to the structure, to the lower time frames, to the major levels, and take things from there. And if we see everything break down, right? We lose the 4-hour 200s, which leads us into the 37K pivot level. We lose that. We lose our hourly 200s now. So what's really stopping us from heading down to 30K again? Not really much. We have little tiny 4-hour demand at 33K ish. So we come down and test that. We lose that as well. So now we're at 30K, and then 30K range. So buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell, and then we lose 30K. All of a sudden, we start zooming out to look for much deeper levels to target. So it very well could happen. And in my head, it's not that the head and shoulders played out. It is that we got rejected from range highs. We got rejected from the 200 daily moving averages. We got rejected from the 4-hour 200s or couldn't hold them. We couldn't hold the hourly 200s mixed with the 37K pivot level. We couldn't hold the 33K 4-hour demand. And we lost the major demand range lows at 30K, so now we're breaking down. Right? So what my analysis is could be just a head and shoulders pattern, but more detailed. But I see it as my analysis. I don't see it as a head and shoulders. So that's what I'm going to stick with. And the reason I can't give you a good answer, Sam, is because I'm not willing to lie to you. I'm not willing to tell you, yes, I pay attention to this, or no, I don't pay attention to this and it sucks, or whatever, because I don't use it. It's not what I use to personally make money trading. So, how can I tell you, yes, you should be using this to make money, or no, you shouldn't be using this to make money? Right? It's not fair to you. So, I will never lie to you. I like your style. Next to none ever pan out. That's been my experience. In my experience, and I think Defsuo agrees, and he is a pattern trader. Head and shoulders, what's the word I'm looking for? Very solemnly? Is that even a word? Very small amount of times do they ever actually play out, in my personal experience. Anybody got any charts that they want to see, or any more questions? I like the question streams. I'm not going to lie. I kind of just look at charts for a living and all day, every day. So it's nice when you guys don't request charts. I mean, obviously, if you want a chart, request it. Like, that's what I'm here for. I quite literally get paid to do that. But it is nice to kind of just come in and talk to you guys, like almost like I'm doing some sort of like podcast, or and not a not a live stream. But if nobody wants anything, then I'll wrap this up. So if you want a chart, or if you have a question, ask now. If not, hold your peace until Wednesday. Ruin USDT. All right. We should go to daily. Martian was actually showing me this chart and told me that he liked it, and I drew this setup as an idea for a future trade. And we'll go ahead and we'll walk through why I thought this was a good setup, or why it would be a good setup if it plays out in the future, because it hasn't even hit entry yet, technically. So, Ruin USDT, finding support along these daily 200 MAs, but how much weight can you give them really? And we don't need that fib draw. How much weight can you give them really, since they were just created 2 months ago, 3 months ago, 4 months? Um, and they're just now getting tested, since inception for the first time ever, or first two times ever. So how much weight can we really give the 200 daily moving averages? I can't honestly give you an answer to that because I have no back test to that data, right? So kind of ignoring those. I believe that when Martian was showing me this trade, the main thing he was paying attention to was RSI, and I believe there was a daily bull div. So I believe RSI had a higher low here where price action made a lower low, and he saw that as a good setup. So that was his idea. As for the 4 hour chart, 4 hour 200s are more the ones that I would want to pay attention to. And that's just simply because they've consistently been local bottoms frequently. And then so breaking below them should have been like the light bulb that went off that said, okay, maybe this time is different than every other time, right? And I would argue that exact same thing here. I'm not perfect, I'm not a genius. I would have told you the exact same thing here. This time looks different, and it meant absolutely nothing. We reclaimed them and we go back to using them as local bottoms again. But in all fairness, every time we lose these 4-hour 200s, I'm going to question the trend just like I would have here, right? And not necessarily here because it's kind of just a wick, but definitely would have questioned it here and would have questioned it here as well. So now that we break down below them, now that we got the light bulb that went off and this time it actually played out, I would anticipate that the same thing that you use as local bottoms for the past however many months are now going to act as local tops. And they do, right? Pretty similar analysis to ETH USD. So the 4-hour 200s are really where I would want to pay attention. Breaking above and reclaiming those, I would think, would lead to a very probable move upwards into your next supply zone at 1650. So that's not even the setup that we had drawn, but this in itself would be a very solid setup for future reference, right? So we have that. We'll keep that there. And now let's pay attention to local price action. So local price action, currently uptrending on our 4-hour. High, higher low. This is all one higher high. We managed to reclaim this 4-hour supply zone, and continuation is likely. Right, so now we have to see, we have to zoom into our lower time frame. Are we breaking a trend? Are we trying to reclaim any levels? Are we at resistance? What's going on here? And maybe we can take a long into the next move upwards into these 4-hour 200s and into this 4-hour supply zone at 1060-ish. Right, so then we zoom into our hourly and we can see the hourly 200s have done a nice job acting as local tops and local bottoms frequently throughout recent price action. So now that we're essentially testing them as support, or I'm sorry, testing them as resistance, really, and you could argue this is support. I would be very skeptical of that. I would want to see physically be able to see high, low retest, and then I would look to buy that retest, not just break out above, close a couple candles above, and just sort of linger and maybe melt down again. So hourly 200's done a nice job holding down price action, and this is why I wouldn't want to get screwed over with something that looks like this, and that could be applied to here too. But hourly 200 MA's done a very nice job holding down price action on both sides. So that's the region that I would want to see flipped, and then from there, I would think that you can take a nice little long, little scalp long with a nice stop loss just below demand and look for that move up into the 4-hour 200s and hopefully the bigger breakout overall into into the higher time frame supply zone as well if the 4-hour 200s give way. And now from there you have much bigger swing trade. So Rune USDT, I probably wouldn't touch it right here right now, but really solid setups for the future. What was that 4-hour trade looking like? Hold on. Let's go back. Oh, we had it drawn here already. So if our hourly 200s, which are right here, those get flipped, take that entry, hide your stop loss below the 4-hour structure, hide it below this demand zone, things like that. Your targets are here, 4-hour 200s. Hopefully they are confluent with this region. That would be nice. And supply zone. Let's say this rips upwards and you never get your entry. And instead we reclaim, retest, right? That's where this setup kicks in. And you can take another long trade from there. Very similar setup. So Rune USDT, I can't say it looks good now. I don't know if it looks bad either, but I can say it's a clean chart with nice levels to work with, and it could potentially provide some very solid setups in the future. Sol BTC, perhaps finding support on the 4-hour 200s, but I'm cautious due to dominance. Fair point. I think it's very warranted to be cautious, my personal opinion. Sol BTC, let's see. Did we draw this out, or was this an SP trade? I can't remember. I think we might have drawn this out. I think this is a live stream trade. So that live stream trade did not work out, and that's more the setup that I would have went with. Wait, can I bring that back? Yeah, this is more the setup that I would have went with. I think hourly 200s might have been even confluent with this idea. Um, I think daily structure overall probably looks like consolidation now more than anything. Yeah, so we'll hide this really quick. The daily structure, you could argue uptrend, really, actually. Yeah, I would see this as uptrend. Higher highs, higher lows. So this is now just still a higher low. So I see your point. I see, the 4-hour 200s are solid, and I think Sol BTC respects them historically. Yeah, it does. So definitely I see the point, 100%. Maybe if you had like RSI, a bull div or something. Actually, I think I have RSI turned on because I was looking at it earlier. So RSI, actually, yeah, there is a bull div. We'll mark it out. This might be solid. I don't know. I don't really use RSI too much, or not anymore at least. I still think mainly I would want to see the breakout reclaim of this region again still, more than anything. But the RSI, the 4-hour 200s holding, and knowing how well they get respected historically, I think all of that are really strong bullish arguments as to why this would reverse from here. And truthfully, if it doesn't reverse from here, I think you're kind of fucked. Because your daily is obviously bullish market structure, so higher highs, higher lows. This is your higher low on your daily chart. If you lose these 4-hour 200s, and let's say this was not the bottom, then what's really stopping you from breaking this daily structure bearishly in the form of a lower low and continuing that downtrend? I really don't see too much stopping you in the way. Maybe there's some 4-hour demand here. So, I mean, you could argue the 4-hour demand too, but I would really think the 4-hour 200s do hold, or else this is kind of screwed. So, definitely get where you're coming from. You have an RSI bull div to kind of go hand in hand with your idea. But I personally would want to see the breakout reclaim of this level first, and then that's when things kind of fall into place where now you're breaking your 4-hour structure bullishly. Maybe you're even confirmed bullish at that point. Who knows? And you can kind of just retake the exact same trade that we had initially. So this long setup where our 4-hour 200s and the daily demand zone, or the 4-hour demand zone was our entry, and the 4-hour 200s were our invalidation. Clearly, we got wicked out, so not ideal. We would have wanted to see it break down entirely. Maybe should have had the stop loss a little bit looser. But I think the same thing applies if and when you reclaim. If and when you reclaim this zone again, then I think this setup falls back into place. And your invalidation is just the low, right? You break below that low again, you're breaking your structure. You've lost the 4-hour 200s fully now at that point, and you're just continuing your downtrend, right? On your daily chart. So your daily's not breaking down. But I don't know if I would feel comfortable just buying the 4-hour 200s and I can't really speak for the RSI bull div or whatever because I don't use that. So this is what I would want to see, and I think things start to fall in place from there, from that point forward. And the analysis as to why we went long, I think hourly 200. So maybe we dollar cost averaged or said that that would be a good idea. I can't really remember. I have to go back and look. But I mean, yeah, even this hourly time frame. So hold on. I'm like trying to recall my thoughts. That's why I kind of just stopped talking there. But this hourly time frame even falls into confluence with what we just said, right? Once you reclaim this region, you've also broken your 4-hour structure bullishly, higher high. Maybe it's even confirmed bullish. Maybe even you find a higher low and then make the higher high after, and now you're confirmed trading bullish. And that only agrees with our idea. So now this is the confluence that we wanted to see the first time around. This is now you're reclaiming not only the zone, you got the 4-hour bull div, you had the 4-hour 200s hold up, you reclaimed the supply zone, you're now trending bullishly on your 4-hour, and you reclaim your hourly 200s. And you know that your bigger time frame, your daily, is saying higher highs and higher lows, right? So at this point, right here, once you reclaim all of that, you get everything flipped bullish again. What's really stopping you from seeing another higher high? Probably not much, I wouldn't think. So that's the setup that I would be very adamant on taking for Sol BTC. BNB USDT. All right, got a bunch of price ranges drawn out. Can't really see what's going on. Gonna get rid of them really quick. All right, daily structure. This is another one that you could argue with me on. A couple different ways that you could see this. Higher highs and higher lows. And then I would say this is higher low. And then we just kind of started the leg upwards from here. You could argue really anything in between low, high, low, or maybe even high, low, high. Not really sure. Different ways you could see it. I'm going to say that this is still uptrending. So that's the way that I'm looking at it. And then I think our lower time frames will really give us a better picture of what's happening. So 4-hour 200 or 4-hour 200s are pretty solid for BNB USDT. We haven't quite come up to test them yet. 4-hour chart currently bullish, higher highs and higher lows. So there's potential here for continuation of what I see as already the higher time frame trend. Our daily is technically bullish the way that I'm looking at it, and our 4-hour agrees with that. So as long as our lower time frames are also bullish, there's really not too much saying that this is going to plummet downwards or whatever. And we have some levels to go along with our analysis. We have this demand zone, which has acted sort of like a pivot, sees support and resistance on both sides. And we just recently back tested that as support. So now what I would be looking for is this move upwards into this, what looks like an hourly supply zone. And really, I think the event to take note of would be flipping this region as a whole. So flipping our 4-hour 200s, which gave us local tops previously, into support, flipping that hourly supply zone. Now you are definitely bullish on your daily, no matter how you look at it. And you know that your 4 hours trending, you know that your hourly is trending. So really what's stopping you from heading up into 455 from there? And then you reclaim that, And our next price range says 16% move from there, likely, and 530. And then you reclaim that and 610. So BNB has some potential too if we start breaking out from that region. But other than that, I really don't see any reason to be trading within this price action, right? Until that move happens, I'm really not interested in this chart at all because honestly, truthfully, I don't have a clear understanding of where do my probabilities lie. I can at least say that if we're above the hourly 200s, if we're above this demand zone, if we're holding a bullish structure, then my probabilities are probably, wow, that's a double negative, but um, our probabilities are likely to the upside, right? We're more likely to maybe get the bearish retest of the 4-hour 200s. So like here, I drew that line pretty bad. So like here, and then maybe we continue the breakout from there on. So if those arguments go away, if the lower time frame arguments go away, if not delete my demand zones, if we lose our structures, if we lose the hourly 200s, which also have been really solid intraday pivot levels, then we can say, all right, this starts to look pretty bad. Maybe your bearish market structure or consolidation, however you want to look at it on the daily, is actually the one to pay attention to. And maybe we come down to maybe test these lows. Who knows, right? Downside potential or downside risk really at that point is 298. That's where your next major demand is. So once you're below this region, 298 is, that doorway has been opened. That is a possibility from that point forward. As long as we maintain these bullish arguments, right, we're still above this region as a whole, then I would think it's a little bit more likely that 386 gets hit and 4-hour 200s get hit. And then once you flip those as well, I think probabilities skyrocket into 455, and then you take it level from there. So, I mean, if you're just scalping, there might be a nice solid little opportunity here. I think the ideal entry was this retest earlier this morning, but you might be able to take a similar setup. You could either hide your stop loss below the demand zone and below this low as well, or below this low, and look for the bigger breakout from there. And then 4-hour 200s, and then supply zone. Not bad setup. Personally, not something that I would take, but I don't think it's bad per se. Another way that you could approach this is kind of just hiding and keeping a looser stop loss, betting that this is going to be the low for quite a bit, and looking for the next supply zone. Looking for a quick tap of that local resistance and maybe even just the 4-hour 200. And that way you're, in and out. You're not looking for the crazy bigger breakout. You're not looking for a much bigger move. You're not looking for daily trend to continue or anything like that. Just looking for resistance and then resistance. Anything else that you guys want to see before we wrap this up? Or any questions? CTSI. Tell you that hourly did not look good. All right, so more than anything, I want to say that this is in a range. And so I had my box drawn here, but with the recent price action, I feel like it's more justified to draw it up here now. We might be able to keep this here or redraw it on like the 4 hour chart and make sense of it. But as for the daily, it did not make sense to me. Higher time frame, this looks like it respected fib draws extremely well. Like I'm not sure you can ask for anything better than this. High to low draw, a high time frame structure gives you a perfect 11.09 fib, and the fibs on the way act as local tops, and the 11.09 gives you the exact top. That is huge. Magic numbers are amazing. You can't tell me otherwise. But overall, the daily chart, I would say, is just stuck in a range, really. So I see range high supply at 85 cents and range low support at 44 cents ish. And I would just think that we continue ranging over and over and over again until either side breaks. And so within the range, within what is a buy here, sell here environment, you currently have downtrend, lower highs and lower lows on what I would assume is every single time frame. Yeah. So 4 hours bearish. Well, actually, no, 4 hours technically bullish. It was lower highs, lower lows, but higher high, higher low, and you're in the process of making another higher high question mark. But for the most part, when you look at these 4 hour 200s, I mean, that's definitely not bullish by any means. You went from using them as local bottoms for how many months to now you're using them as local tops consistently to find your lower high on your daily to continue the downtrend within what is overall range. So I'm truly not interested in this until we get here again. And I'm a buyer here, and if we lose that, then this looks awful. And I would anticipate that it's just going to keep ranging over and over again for the rest of forever until it stops ranging forever. Hourly chart, hourly 200s, not as clean, do get somewhat respected. When we have a bunch of momentum, they are clean. When we're going sideways, not really respected too much. So, like here, sideways for a bit, and then breakdown. And then respected very nicely because we were trending with a bunch of downside momentum. And then we start going sideways, and now they get disrespected. We're trending down again. I know it's a crazy wick, but they still acted as a local top. And now we're downtrending again. Retest them. So I would anticipate that they might act as a local top here now. And considering that our higher time frames are also pretty bearish and pretty ugly looking, I really would not even, I don't know, waste my breath trying to make a bullish argument for this. I would kind of just wait for some sort of strength. Higher highs, higher lows, reclaiming hourly 200s, getting them shifted up again, breaking the 4 hour structure, or I mean, it's currently broken, but if you see that continue above the hourly 200s, maybe you see another tap of the range highs, maybe you break your daily structure bullishly, things like that. And then really the nail in the coffin is once you reclaim this range again, it should be go time. It should skyrocket from there, right? That's the idea. You're probably going to expand away from the range in whichever way that the range breaks. So once we see that sort of stuff, then, I'll want this in my portfolio by all means. But for now, I'm perfectly okay with not having this in my portfolio, and I'll await 43 cents and maybe I'll be a buyer there. And if we lose 43 cents, then I'll start looking for much, much lower, 25, 23, and below that, I'm not really sure. Probably would just want to call it quits at that point. All right, couple more requests. 1-inch USDT. Can do that. This fib draw should not be here anymore. So 1-inch currently testing daily supply from what I can see. And our current market structure is higher highs and higher lows on the daily time frame. So actually implying that we do break this zone sooner or later. So definitely not the most bearish of bearish retests. You are uptrending into the supply zone, not just back testing it before a more downtrend. So context matters here, and the context of this move upwards is drastically different than this move upwards. Right? So now daily, or I'm sorry, so 4 hour now, 4 hour 200s are pretty solid. Not beautiful by any means, but pretty solid. So the fact that they are confluent with this region definitely makes me a lot more confident if we manage to reclaim. I can't really call this a reclaim because oftentimes what happens, and maybe we'll be able to find um, an example. So like something like this. And truly, this isn't even that bad of a breakout retest and then continue. But I don't want to see just like a cluster of candles above a region and assume that this is it for the much bigger breakout. It very well could be, but I would feel a lot more confident seeing something like this. I can physically see high to low, retest, continuation, retest again, continuation, right? Can physically see it. Not willing to call these tiny little 2 4 hour candles a breakout retest. Can't do it. Not in good conscience, at least. So I would want to see breakout, retest. That's my entry. Look for the bigger continuation. Obviously, I know that my daily structure is bullish. So I would think that $4.29 is very likely. And then once we break above that, I would think $5.24, very likely, and continue that sort of mentality all the way up until eventually we're above our last resort 618. That's sort of the last supply standing in your way before new all-time highs becomes very likely. And in the meantime, hourly 200s get very well respected as local tops and local bottoms. So maybe just look for a pullback into these hourly 200s again. And that would be my entry. Can't really say where I'd put my stop loss. It's kind of difficult. You could just hide it slightly below, or you could put it below the structure as a whole. Obviously, this is safer, but you sacrifice risk reward. This is much more speculative, but your risk reward skyrockets. So, more probable setup, rewarding or much more rewarding setup. But maybe you just do something in between. Not really sure. That's the problems you run into when you're trading. So, welcome to being a trader. But this is where I would look for an entry. Or if we never get here, then I would look for breakout retest, or maybe even we just skyrocket and then I would look for a breakout retest here. And the others were VeChain USDT. All right, so kind of similar to what BNB looked like. I know you weren't here for that analysis, but this one's a bit different than the chart that we just looked at because you could argue with me and say that these are low, high, lower low, and now this is a lower high. Personally, I'm still going to see this as higher highs and higher lows. Kind of just see this as all one down move. But you could argue with that and you could have, or you could see it a different way. And honestly, I wouldn't have a counter argument as to why you're wrong. So keep that in mind. Also, keep in mind the 4 hour 200s are very significant for this, just as they are for sushi, which we're going to look at, and ETH. Um, a lot of these coins love their 4 hour 200s, and VeChain is no exception to that. So that's really the zone that I would be paying attention to. Once you reclaim that, I would think probabilities skyrocket, and I would say at that point you're either breaking your daily structure bullish again or you're just continuing it, right? And what's really stopping you from creating a higher high at that point? Not much. There's not much here, right? It's kind of just thin air. So I would think you continue all the way up into 18.5 cents again. But that's the setup that I would really be paying attention to for VeChain. And then obviously stop loss, you would want it below some sort of invalidation, maybe your market structure, maybe a lower time frame moving average, whatever you can get. Confluence is obviously welcomed, and then you know where you're targeting. You know your entry. You don't know your stop loss yet, so it's kind of just a rough draft. Hopefully, it's nice and tight so you can get some more reward. But you know your entry, you know your take profit. You just need the actual price action to play out so you can know your invalidation, right? But that's really what I would want to see for VeChain. And that would be what I would say is a highly probable setup. In the meantime, your hourly 200s still holding up as resistance. These get very well respected also. So simply, you could either, short and look for the downtrend, break it in structure, things like that. Or you can wait for a breakout retest, get long into this region, and then once you're above that region, you're above your 4 hour 200s as well. And that's where things really start to look fun. All right. So last one, sushi USDT. Daily 200s, don't pay too much attention to them. Not really notable. Just got created not too long ago. Daily market structure, however, is bearish. Lower high, and then you followed up with a lower low. So not really a shift in trend there. This was obviously bullish market structure, higher highs, higher lows, and then you break that, and then you make lower high, higher low, but then lower high. So you're consolidating, and now you make lower low. So you are without a doubt bearish now on sushi USDT. You can even argue there's supply in this region. Now we're back testing it as resistance, but we can zoom in, and I think that'll be more helpful. So really, let's actually delete this bigger zone, and let's kind of pinpoint it a little bit more. I think we can do that. So I'll say this general region kind of giving us supply because we found support along it so many times prior, right? So now this move up is like a bearish retest. So I really don't think this coin looks good, like at all. I think this is more of a short than anything, and look for continuation to the downside. And my invalidation would just be reclaiming this zone and continuing this what looks like a relief bounce upwards from there. Again, 4 hour 200s get very well respected for sushi. consistently acting, local bottoms, and even local tops. So that's really where I would say this starts to look very strong on a higher time frame. Until that happens, even if even if you short and get stopped out and we have another crazy move upwards from there, another 24% move upwards or whatever, I still wouldn't be macro bullish on this. I can't be if we are breaking down momentum wise, trend wise, and the same thing that we were using as local bottoms for months on months, we're now here using them as local tops. And our daily market structure is currently bearish, and it's going to take a lot to break that. So, out of the three that you requested, Falk, I would say this is the weakest. And the irony in that is that if altcoins skyrocket tomorrow, then sushi is going to bounce the hardest of the three, just because it has the most room to run. Because that's how this market likes to work.
Thanks, mate. That's helpful.
Yep.
I kind of caught the wick there at the bottom. I don't know what exactly my entry is. I think it's kind of $8 or something. So I'll probably just kind of take a bit off here and leave some in.
I think that's probably the safest approach. I don't know. I mean, you could hold on to it, and if it rips, if this isn't the bearish retest before continuation of a much bigger breakdown, then you're going to look like a genius, right? Because you bought what is essentially the bottom, and if we reclaim this zone, then a bigger bounce to that region that we discussed, this 22% bounce, is actually probable at that point. And then this zone has potential to act as the local top before more downtrend. And if it doesn't, then we reclaim that zone, and now you have a much more probable 21% from there, right? And so your entry is 8 something, so we'll just say 850. So you're up, I don't know, 5% currently. At one point, you were up 10%. So you have ample opportunity if strength starts showing. But currently, this is not strength. This is just a mini bounce, bearish retest, and I would think that continuation is the most likely outcome from here, just probability wise. I could be wrong, and if I am wrong, I'm going to be very wrong. Like, this is going to reclaim and it's going to rip 20% in 2 days or whatever. But probability wise, I'm not likely to be wrong. And it's not me saying that, that's the market telling me that.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right. Well, I think that's it from you guys, unless there's anything last minute. Just like the fourth time I've asked, and then somebody puts in another
You went
request.
through Algo and KSM earlier, didn't you?
I did not. No.
Oh, okay. Maybe we have a quick look at KSM.
KSM. All right. KSM actually uptrending on the daily, higher highs, higher lows. This looks more like this is a daily supply zone, I would say. So still under daily supply. I would think that once this gives way, and you can manage to bullish retest this, maybe even just on a lower time frame, I would think all-time highs become very likely at that point. And from there, I would look for this fib draw, which coincidentally, golden pocket at this region as well. So kind of struggling with this region as a whole. And so if we manage to reclaim this supply zone, I would think 1.618, 2.618, bears are dumb. That whole spiel that we used to have 2 months ago or so, that falls back into place here if that happens. Lower time frames. Get rid of this fib draw for right now. So 4-hour structure, currently bullish, kind of hanging on for dear life along these 4-hour 200s. I wouldn't really expect these to get perfectly respected, just because they have no momentum. So when the 4-hour 200s are doing this, when they're clearly biased, they're going to favor price action. So any pullbacks down into them are likely going to see some bounces. When we're kind of just going sideways and they have no momentum, I can't really justify that as an argument in itself as to why these would hold as some sort of local bottom or continuation point or whatever. Um, I would only really use it as confluence to an already agreement in agreement with an analysis that I already had. But they're definitely not an argument in themselves at the moment, considering they have no bias. They do not favor price action towards one side or the other. The only analysis you can really make is once you're above the 4 hour 200s, you're slightly more bullish, and once you're below them, you're slightly more bearish. And you would have made that analysis here, and it would have saved your ass because you even bearish retested them, and you didn't really see any sort of breakdown, right? It's kind of just you're hugging these 4 hour 200s. You're kind of just consolidating around above, below, in between, whatever you can before the much bigger breakout towards either direction. And the much bigger breakout is either going to be you break out above this supply zone again, and you're probably off to the races at that point. It would seem to me like this is your local bottom on the daily at that point, and new all-time highs become very likely. Continuation of your uptrend on the daily become very likely. Otherwise, I would just look for the breakdown of the range lows. This is 4 hour demand. Gets respected very nicely. I'd be a buyer here, and I'd also be a idiot getting stopped out if it breaks down and look for the bigger breakdown, right? But until that happens, I really, even though our daily market structure is bullish, I can't justify making a directional bet when there is no trend, when there is no momentum, when we're kind of just consolidating in between 485 and 346, right? Over and over and over again. And whichever way breaks or gives way, I would think that's going to be the trend for quite some time. Anything other than that, wouldn't even really bother to argue. Hourly is very much in agreement with the analysis that we just made. Previously, hourly 200s getting very well respected, acting as local bottoms. Here they're acting as local tops. And now we're kind of just seeing them get chopped up, acting as local bottoms. They even acted as local tops. And now they're going sideways. Still got respected, had a little bit of momentum. And now we're just chopping throughout them, right? So not really a clear bias as to what side should I be playing. Should I be longing the mid-range, looking for range highs? Should I be shorting the breakdown and looking for range low? Can't really tell. I don't think. Um, I don't think
Yeah,
the
it's kind of
sub
a weird
plus
one.
EV. Yeah,
Yeah, I was kind of buying. So on the 4 hour, I was kind of buying kind of playing the daily market structure, and was buying the kind of retest on the 4 hour, and then I cost averaged it a little bit. So probably got an average entry of, I don't know, 400 now or so. And obviously, I was hoping for a kind of clearer bounce and uptrend, and
yeah.
now I'm in the trade for a couple of days or 3 days, and it's not really happening anything.
Yeah, and I think, with all fairness, man, I think that was the play to make. I think if this test didn't hold, I think the hourly 200s mixed with the 4 hour 200s, I think that was a solid zone to look for an entry, and then have your stop loss below the daily market structure. Look to play the bigger trend, and look for continuation from there. But when you
Yeah.
start getting this, I mean, this is just painful. This is the trend is there is no trend. We're going to chop you up. We're going to make you think that we're going to 480 tomorrow. And then the next day after that, we're going to make you think that we're going to 350. And we're going to ruin your trading portfolio and make you close your long and re enter it 17 times before the actual move happens. So there's an opportunity cost that comes with that as well, which is your capital is devoted to this trade, which doesn't really have a directional bias, and your mental capital is devoted to this trade as well. So you're constantly
Mhm. Yeah.
thinking about the trade itself throughout the day when you're trying to live your life. So there's definitely some downsides to taking a trade when it's doing something stupid like here. But by all means, I think you had the right idea. And I know you DM'd me the setup, and I said it looks good, and I still agree with that. I think it was a great idea. It just didn't play out so well. It
Yeah.
could still play out. It could not play out. I can't really say. That's the thing. That's the thing though. I can't really tell you a confidence level of the trade playing out from here because it's not really doing anything. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's superb. Cheers, mate.
awesome, man. All right, no one else has anything. I don't think. Falk joined late, but managed to get some stuff. Glad we got that out of the way. Um, anything else? I'm gonna just say DM it to me. We've been streaming for 2 hours now. Um, as always, though, I appreciate you guys. I hope you had a great weekend as well. Um, nobody told me what they had planned for this weekend. I'm a bit disappointed, but hopefully you had a great weekend. Thank you all for coming to the stream, and we are back again on Wednesday. So I will see you Wednesday. Take care, everybody.
Take care, mate. Bye.
Thanks.